Right, morning everybody. I've got my headset on, like, instead of a hairband, which I don't need. I'll say that now. Thank you for that introduction. I'm going to introduce myself because apparently I'm a bit of a rare beast. I'm a school principal that does food education, and I've been doing it for quite a few years actually. And I was always asked, I'm going to give you a context of what our school is about, Washingborough Academy in Lincolnshire. We've got children from the age of 3 to 11, and we've got the context of the school. We're fairly rural. We're near a big city, but, just outside of it. We've got a 300-metre square kitchen garden, which is organic. That's a story in itself, actually, because I dug that up, not personally, but we have quite a lot of land around our school and quite a lot of sports fields. And to change anything in your school grounds in England, you have to ring up Sport England and say, I want to change this. And so I had this lovely piece of land that we weren't using. And I rang them up and said, I want to make this into a kitchen garden that's going to be accessible to the children. They can use it all year round. It's going to be a great resource. And I'm on the phone to them, and they're tutting and they're sucking their teeth, and they go, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I said, well, why not? He said, well, you need it for sport. I said, but we've got lots of fields for sport. And they're still sucking their teeth, and they go, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. And put the phone down, and I got the local farmer in, and I got him to dig it up. Because if they ever come back to me, there's always, you do it and then you apologise afterwards. And that was my thing of, sorry, the line was a bit dodgy. I couldn't really hear what you do. And it was one of the best things we've done. We've also created a 300-metre squared organic garden, polytunnel. We've got hives, we've got an apiary, we've got a heritage apple orchard, all apples that are from Lincolnshire. We've got a pizza oven. We've got lots and lots of things. So it's really kind of immersed in the school. It's a whole school focus. And while I was doing all of that type of thing, people used to come round and look at the school and think, well, why do you do that? You're not measured by it. We're measured by our maths and our English results. Why do you do that? And that got me to question and do my research, because I had a bit of spare time as a head teacher. I thought, well, why not do a doctorate at the same time? So I got into that and tried to unpick the motivations of other head teachers who do that, okay? Because my experience told me that children are really engaged in this area of learning and really excited about the learning that goes on. And you want to create a curriculum and an environment that excites children, and also those dark arts of teaching, of them learning when they don't know they're learning, okay? Which is, is that kind of golden thread that goes through. And we're also tapping into an area where every child has an experience of. Everybody has an experience of food. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, they've got to eat. So you've got that already. You've got their interest. You've piqued their interest. So what I did was I went out and we have an award in the UK called the Food for Life Gold Award. And it's all about the whole school approach to food education. And people who reach out, it's quite a tough award to get. We've got it ourselves, and there are 23 at the time, other schools that had it, and 17 of them were primary schools. So I wasn't going to interview myself and do all that type of thing. So I contacted the other head teachers around the country, and heads off to all you researchers who try and get interviews with head teachers. We are very difficult to get hold of. It's really, really tough. Because I couldn't get hold of them because I went in as a researcher. I was ringing up the school secretary and saying, oh, can I speak to your head teacher? What's that? I'm researching about school food. Never got an answer back. So I had to put my other hat on and say, oh, I'm a head teacher. Can I speak to your head teacher? Straight through the door. I got them great. And so I got in touch with all 17. Some were on maternity leave, some had left and were taken over by another head and whatever, but one of the people that have actually started it, and I managed to get 10 of them, which I was really pleased with, actually. So they are really expert interviews. These are people who have lived and breathed it and got the scars on their back of putting this into schools, even though we're not measured and it's not on league tables for the amount of food education that we do in schools. And this is my method and methodology. I did sit these interviews, I'll talk about them, semi-structured interviews, face-to-face. I wanted to do it face-to-face with them. I didn't want to do it on the phone or anything. I wanted to visit their schools as well. I didn't want to talk about my school. I went in straight as a researcher. And my method and methodology of my study represented here. I took an interpreter's approach and carried out these semi-structured face-to-face interviews with the participants. They did have sight of the questions beforehand. and the interviews took about 30 minutes and an hour to complete. They're all held at the head teacher schools. I went and visited them. They were carried out in the summer term. The timing of this was important because it was after national exams, so you're a little bit more relaxed in that summer term. Okay, so I didn't want to kind of pack it all in. I used Braun and Clark's reflective thematic analysis to analyse the transcripted data, which I put in vivo. Now, these were the emerging findings. Why do head teachers introduce it into their curriculum? So you can see here, it came out with three main themes, which were accountability, the personal, this is what I called them, and social glue. I know that was mentioned earlier on, actually, as a term. Within the accountability theme, there are two sub-themes of learning and children's health. But also off there, we've got the pressures and risks and the skills for life. I'll explain these as we go on. Within the personal aspect, we had that emotional connection, you know, from themselves, but we also had an educational USP, unique selling point, making your school a little bit different from the one down the road. And then finally, the last theme was social glue, a tool for community cohesion and also family and community health. Okay, so I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail now. The accountability. Now, if you know about the English education system, it's the inclusion of food education within the national curriculum is really, really brief. It's really sparse. So if you're looking at as a head who hasn't got this interest, you think it's not really taken, you know, seriously in there. It's actually put in the design and technology section of another of that subject. So it's actually a kind of footnote of design and technology. When I first started teaching, food education within design and technology was actually, you had to create a pizza box. That was it, really. That was food education in the UK. Currently, very, very sparse. Children aged between 5 and 7, you've got to use the basic principles of a healthy and varied diet to prepare dishes. That's one thing. The other thing is understand where food comes from. Now, that's it for Key Stage 1. Understand where food comes from. Interesting note, actually. I always ask the children where their food comes from when they come into school. It's just, you know, kind of, I'm just curious about it. Years ago, you know, you used to get, oh, it comes from the supermarket. You know, you had no link to farms or the land or anything like that. 2 years ago, I asked a child where their food comes from, and her response was, it comes from Mummy's iPad. So Mummy does the shopping on her iPad, and then all of a sudden the food arrives at the door. How disconnected are we? Well, how disconnected are the children now from where their food comes from? Key Stage 2, it expands it a little bit, okay? So issues of a healthy and varied diet, prepare and cook a variety of predominantly savoury dishes, using a range of cooking techniques, and understand about seasonality. And that's it. As a head, as a school, as a curriculum, they are your guidelines. It's quite good that it's open to interpretation. You can do as much as you want. We do loads, so I can tap it all into that. But if you're not into that, you're not really going to cover it, okay? So, and then there was a report or a guidance on the implementation of food education in the national curriculum, an independent review, which I was part of, the food education learning landscape. And it highlighted quite a lot of areas of concern in the UK. Stark differences between effective food education curriculum, and schools again struggled through timetabling, resources and support. So the other bit about why some heads did it, when we looked at the themes there, was about improving the school lunch experience. They were motivated by very poor offer of lunches that the school was provided. So within the UK, there's a mixture of private companies, a few local authority-run kitchens, and school chefs who are employed by the individual schools. We have that. We have our own school chef. I've made sure I got rid of a private company because they were terrible, and got our own school chef. Adds problems because I'm their employer. If they go off, then you know you've got issues. But anyway, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, especially with private companies, this has led to company profits above food quality. And as you may have seen in the press, and you may have had it in your countries, the quality of food provided to disadvantaged children was absolutely shocking. What children were getting when they were learning from home was really, really poor. But these companies, oh, right, we're getting this money from the government. We can really put a load of rubbish in a bag, give it to them, and we can cream off the top. These teachers wanted to make their lunchtime hour a lesson, one that supports children's appreciation and understanding around food and manners, and also a key time to relax and socialise. Another area was the curriculum, okay? The reasons why head teachers include food education was in their curriculum offer. And this was through a sense of enjoyment, through a sense of pleasure. And we sometimes forget that when we're talking about food, don't we? It is a sense of pleasure. Let's get that with the children, okay? A key to any education, especially to teaching young children, is to make sure that they're doing something hands-on as well. Really, really practical, working with their friends, that team aspect of it. As you can see from Lorna's comment here, the antithesis of the factory model that unfortunately a lot of schools have found themselves in, because there's an overemphasis on maths and English, because you can measure it. You can't measure pleasure really, you know, on a number scale, but you can with your maths things and your scores and your tests. So they wanted to push back on this climate of performativity. By bringing food education into their curriculum, that was the motivating factor for them. They were developing more creativity in their settings and a sense of excitement. So not just the children, but key to this, the adults as well. Adults were really keen to do this. But those pressures and those risks also come with, you know, head teachers were worried because they're not being measured by this. League tables don't measure about food education, they measure about maths and English. And there's quite a good demographic about the age of these head teachers, okay? All of them were aged 45 plus, over 45, these ones that have gone for it. And one of their head teachers said, I think it's to do with the age and the values, because I find that a lot of younger colleagues are totally obsessed with English and maths. They've probably been brainwashed within their initial teacher training. This is what you should be doing, okay? But the older teachers, older head teachers thinking, right, this is what is really important. And part of my thesis also, I looked at educational leadership styles. What is the motivating factor in their style? And it really was a values-based approach. The key thread to all those head teachers' reasoning behind the inclusion of food education was they felt that it was the right thing to do. It was at the core of that. I thought this was going to be a biggie. You know, with all the thing we've got about children's obesity and all this type of thing, children's health, it did feature, but not greatly. Not the overriding thing that head teachers put it into their schools for, okay? And I think, you know, just talking to them in my own experience of that, and I've talked to a few colleagues about this, the word nutrition is great, but it's a little bit off-putting for teachers because they're not nutritionists. We have all these hats, and you start talking about nutrition. We're not scientists, really. You know, we're teachers, we want to do all this. So you start talking about that, puts some people off. And we want to get, you know, all these factors that go into obesity. Education is one thing, but there's so many other factors that I think, you know, the heads are saying, we can do a little bit, but we can't do everything. Okay, so that was at the, you know, it was mentioned by them, but it wasn't a key thing for them. It was also mentioned that you know, they wanted to make a difference to children's health was not only focused on their physical health and childhood obesity figures, but also, and very pertinent now coming out of COVID and lockdown, is children's mental health. And that was a big factor in introducing it. Many of them cited the benefits of their school gardens and children being outside and that link to nature. And you think the food that we ingest and we put in is our closest link to nature. It's grown in the ground. Or, you know, if you're meters rich, you know, it's out in the fields. That is our closest link. And also, as we talked yesterday, a little bit about the sustainability aspect of it as well, and climate change and carbon footprints. Okay. I'm just going to zip through because I'm conscious of time. The educational USP was one of the personal motivations to get it into their curriculum offer. It was that vision setting of the heads, a sense of creating something different from any other school, doing something from off-the-shelf curriculum offers, something that they thought, we can be in control of this, we can shape this. And it wasn't a focus on the maths and English that everybody else was doing. there's also, you know, when you become a head, you have to take a qualification and an MPQH and whatever. And they also talk about setting your vision and your ethos for the school. And in my mind, that's done, and you've done that in the kind of theory level, but with everybody just pushing things on you, you don't have that time to set your vision, what you think is important for a school. And these heads said that. Comes from inside, their values. We think this is so important. We'll put not your jobs on the line, but you are going to make it really, really key to everything you do, and you're going to make sure that everybody is part of that. Going back to Gopinder's beautiful rendition of that song, it was absolutely gorgeous. If that ever came up in a play in my school, no way would that happen. I would never have that happen in my school at all, because you're putting out messages, and that has to be led from the top. Okay, when I first went to the school, every birthday, children brought in cakes and shared them with their friends. We stopped that. I don't want that type of thing. That's getting other messages across. You know, we replaced it with the children bringing a book, and they have a little template in the book, and this is for Agatha's birthday on the 7th of December or whatever, and they put that into the library. You change it for the different things, but you've got to get these messages across, and that's what heads do. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to go through these. Again, these are all about the emotional connection, people talking about what they've experienced themselves as a child that highlighted it when they had those experiences when they're at school. And I want to do that when I become a head teacher. I want to give other children those experiences myself, okay, because I really enjoyed them. And as a head, we're all control freaks. Heads are really big control freaks, okay? We also, we have a lot of power within a school. What happens in the school is up to the head. They can do that, okay? So if you really enjoy something, I want to enjoy going to work. If I've got loads of food education going on all over the place, my job's a lot better. I really enjoy it, and enthusing other people to do it as well. Now, moving on to the social glue, and this was fascinating. This is the kind of theme that I didn't expect, but it was really, really illuminating. One of the most surprising, and the most exciting, because it's centered around commensality. The social aspect of eating together, which we've mentioned earlier on. Head teachers use their food education curriculum and community events that's centered around food to bring their communities closer together. Hence the social glue. I ended up calling it, my contribution to knowledge was pedagogical commensality, using your timetable, using your teaching time to bring that community together. Every head to a person said, whenever I do a maths event, bring parents in, or whether I do a grammar event or a spelling event, bring parents in, I don't get that much take-up. Parents might have been scarred by the experience they had at school. I'm not very good at maths, I'm not going to go in there. You start bringing in food, especially cultural food as well. You open the door, there's a massive rush of people coming in. And then you can start doing the work of those relationships and building those relationships, then add to the children's educational attainment as well. The interviews also talked about celebrating their community's diverse cultural heritage, and that food was something that everybody could connect with. As Christina here states, food is a thing that binds us all together. It was also utilised to create and celebrate and reinforce intergenerational links with the school's local community. And this was done through the sharing of cultural and family traditions, but also just the simple act of eating together and socialising as well. And we did that during the pandemic. We used to get, you can see the pictures here of the older community in our villages coming in and sharing the work. This was before the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, we continued that by providing meals for the over 70s in the surrounding villages. We were providing 70 meals a day to self-isolating over 70s and delivering. Volunteers were delivering them in little kind of tinfoil packs to them. And great, they were having a fantastic meal. I wanted to utilise the chef because there wasn't so many children coming into the thing and keep him motivated. But key to that, and what we found out later on, the key thing was these people in these houses were not meeting anybody, of course, because of the pandemic. So you were standing 20 metres away from someone and they were talking to someone. And they said that was the biggest thing that they enjoyed about it. They loved the meals, but that connection with people through windows, standing on a doorstep with someone else putting the meal on the doorstep and then stepping away. And then that conversation. It was taking 20 minutes to deliver one meal because they wanted to talk. And that's what food did. It created that connection. I said that community cohesion here about seeing the role as the school that can have an impact on it. It's at the centre of it. My school has the biggest footfall of any company within the surrounding area. I get at least 600 people coming through the gates every day. You can make a big impact, and food is the key thing that does that. It opens people's eyes to things. It is a great incentive to get people in. And it also creates these family learning opportunities and positive messages that go home from these. And they've developed additional food-related homework activities, parental workshops to further support message of healthy eating and the social benefits of eating food together. We have kind of different classes, bread-making classes, curry-making classes that Chef does with parents to up their skills as well. Now, to end, I do remember my director of studies, my supervisor, saying, create a diagram. Everybody loves a diagram. And I kind of, yeah, all right, then I will. And I do thank him for that, because this is kind of it in a nutshell. Why do head teachers, school leaders, put this into their schools, okay? First bit here is that personal, okay? It represents their own personal and professional values, creating that professional identity. Their moral purpose as well was a word that was often used, a phrase that was often used. Their values, their own personal values, and their personal experiences. One aspect of the themes that they did. Okay, the next one is the school aspect. And this is their professional core practices as a head teacher and the mandatory knowledge and skills that are taught. So the academic outcomes they received were improved, the knowledge, their skills as well, and their enjoyment of these lessons and the food that they were taking part in, and also that expansion out into the lunch experience as well. The children were trying a lot more things, the engagement, accountability, the skills for life, and then also their physical health as well, and of course their mental health that I talked about beforehand. And then finally, you've got the social aspect of it, and the wider benefits of their food education curriculum on their social and their personal development, which creates a stronger relationships between the community and the school, and all the benefits that come from that. So that pedagogical commensality that I termed, okay, so that aspect of using what's in the timetable to bring your community closer together through food. Social capital as well. Family cooking skills were improved, cultural understanding, mental well-being, family educational cultures, religious tolerance, and school connections as well. So all of those things there, all of these aspects were what those head teachers, experts in the field, and I concur with this because we're, you know, when I was looking into it, yeah, I do it for that reason as well, and I do it. And I kind of opened up the onion of food education for me. That's what they believed were the benefits of it. Thank you. Okay, I'll manage to get it in on time, didn't I?